Hi guys, welcome back to the Higher Ground Lifestyle channel. Norman Sutherland here. In our last video, we started a new project on the new truck. We installed a new Slimline II roof rack by Frontrunner. This time, we're going to do the installation of the matching roof tent by Frontrunner. Should be a good one. If you've seen the previous video, you'll know that we had a load of equipment delivered from Frontrunner that included the matching rack and tent. There were a number of reasons why I chose to go with Frontrunner, but a key consideration was weight. The Frontrunner gear is some of the lightest that you can buy, and their tent, in terms of its overall weight of around 43 kilograms, is by far the lightest rooftop tent on the market. And that's really important when you're considering a vehicle like the Jimny, which has a very limited roof loading. So the tent itself comes in a pretty big box. Let's see what's in the box. Serious job unpacking. It's in double boxes, very well packaged. So we've got it opened up. The other thing I always like to do at this stage as well is get rid of all of the bits of cardboard with the big staples in it for two reasons. One, they're very uncomfortable when you kneel on them, and two, I always think there's a danger they'll scratch something, so get those out of the way. Serious bit of kit. A key decision over the installation of your tent is whether or not you want it to open over the side or the end of your vehicle. Before I had installed the rack on the vehicle, Sheena, my wife, and I had lifted it out and trial fitted it on, just to see how it looked in both orientations. Obviously it was easier to do this while the rack was still on the ground and we weren't having to lift it above our heads. This exercise also allowed us to discuss the relative merits of mounting it off the rear of the vehicle or off the side, and it gave me a chance to talk through with Sheena what that would mean. I've come inside because I want to talk for just a minute about tent orientation, because I think this is one of the biggest decisions that you're going to have to make after deciding what kind of rack you want and what tent you want. And what we're talking about here is what direction you want the tent to fold in. And I'm going to demonstrate that by using my extremely detailed scale model of a Suzuki Jimny and a roof tent. So there are basically four different options for mounting the tent on the Jimny. Option 1, mount it folding out to the right. Option 2, to mount it folding out to the left. Option 3, to have it folding out to the rear. And option 4, technically possible, but a bit more complicated, to have it folding out to the front. Now the reality is we can probably exclude that front mounting option because you can see the obvious problem. It's where does your ladder go to get into the tent? Now there's no right or wrong decision here, but personally I would prefer to mount my tent with the tent folding out to the rear of the vehicle. And my reason for that is that will mean that the shaded portion, the overlap if you like, is to the rear of the vehicle, and that will allow me to still use the rear door of the vehicle and to have access there and to have shelter while I'm using that rear door. It will also mean if at a later date I choose to fit the optional front runner side skirts, that those side skirts will be able to cover the area around the door, and I'll have a work area or a kitchen at the back of the vehicle. Of course, you could achieve the same thing by mounting it to the side, but just because of the size of the Jimny, we turn the car around, you can see the tent's not actually big enough to cover the whole door, no matter where we mount it. So I think the options are more limited there. One of the obvious disadvantages in mounting it to the rear is our antenna is going to get in the way, but I don't see that as a major problem. I'll simply remove the antenna. It screws out very quickly and easily, and that will allow me to have my tent opening over the rear of the vehicle, thus. But please take a bit of time and think about it. Work out what's going to work for you best. And make sure you plan it through, because there's always a danger that something is going to get in your way. And it is critical because it determines the way that we're going to mount the side rails on the bottom of the tent. The hinges on the tent are on this side here, the side closest to me. So we need to mount the the rails going from forward to back. If we wanted the tent to go over the side of the vehicle, we would have these running the other way. Now you can see, because of the different dimensions of the tent, if we had a side mounted tent, we don't need to trim these bars at all. But because we're going from front to rear, the rails are actually slightly too long. So the first thing we've got to do is locate our bolts in the mounting holes here and determine how much of the aluminium we're going to have to cut off at either side. Okay, so that's both of those rails cut to size, so we can now fit them. Okay, so I've temporarily located the rail back in. Next thing we need to do is to drill a hole 20mm in from the end, and this hole is going to be used to screw the end of the rail into the aluminium tubing. Okay, so I've carefully marked the hole. Easiest way to do these is to punch them first. So locate your punch. Make sure then that your drill gets a good start. I've started off with a smaller size bit, and then I'll bore that out to 4mm. Good, and I'm also being very careful to tidy up all of the aluminium shavings as I go along. We don't want that to get into the tent. And there we have 4mm hole right in the end where we want it. Now that the rails are cut to length and the holes are drilled in them, the next thing we can do is open the tent up and pass the bolts that are going to secure those from the back so that we can bolt them and secure them on the outside. Don't forget the penny washers on the inside of these, just to spread the load across the floor. It's quite tricky because the bolts are actually, or the nuts rather, are in the channel. So you just have to slide them up and down until you find the bolt. There we go. So we do that for all four, and then we're going to put the self-tapping screws in either end. Just finish off the rails by tapping in the plastic end pieces that seal the end of the channels. The next job is to fit the ladder. So we've turned the tent back upside down, and we've identified the 4 holes at the outside that locate the brackets for the ladder. The brackets, fairly straightforward, and the bolts pass from the inside of the tent to the outside, and they're secured with a flat washer and a nylock nut. The ladder is then mounted on the brackets with a bolt, a couple of washers, a plastic spacer and a nylock nut. Now that we've attached the lower rails and the ladder to the tent, it's time to turn our attention to the roof rack and the bits that we're going to require to attach the tent to the rack. The front runner roof rack mounting kit comes with 4 brackets like this. These brackets are going to be bolted onto the slats on the front runner rack, and then they're going to get tightened up and the rails are going to be secured through the hole here. I've now roughly positioned those 4 brackets where they need to be on the rack. You can see the bolts just slide into the rail, and I haven't tightened them up yet so that we've got a bit of movement, so that when we set the tent on we can get things lined up.
Because it's going to be quite difficult to show this when we're lifting the tent onto the roof, because it's going to be all hands on deck, I wanted just to show you the mechanism here and what we're trying to achieve. So, that's the cross-section profile that is the rail that's running along the bottom of the tent. Into that we're going to slide one of these slider pieces with the bolt in it sitting in the channel. That's then free to slide up and down in that channel to give us some adjustment. And the challenge that we now have is to lift the tent onto the roof and to locate these bolts through the front runner tent mounting brackets, and being very careful as we're doing that. Okay, so we've now lifted the tent onto the rack and we've passed the bolts that are in the slides that slide into the channel underneath the tent through the holes in the front runner roof tent mounting brackets. I've now checked and measured and I'm absolutely comfortable that the tent is completely square on the rack. The next job then, once you've got the tent in the position that you want, is to tighten up all of those nuts. And that includes the ones that come from the top that are holding the tent now on to the brackets, and those nuts that are holding the brackets themselves onto the front runner roof rack. So again, just make sure they're all in the right position. Make sure your tent is square from front to back and left to right before you tighten all of those up. They're a little bit awkward, but you can get in there with a flat spanner, and a ratchet spanner, if you've got one, makes the job so much easier. The next thing we need to do is to fit the cover. But before we fit the cover, we just need to make sure that the tent is packed neat and tidy so that nothing is going to get damaged when we close the zip. The cover is secured in two different ways. In the rear, it is secured in the slot here in the channel. There's a section that slides in here, and then it is zipped right around using this zip. And effectively what that means is that when the cover is zipped on, the tent is completely sealed. So this rear channel goes in first of all, just in case it's sliding in to that slot and feeding it along the whole back channel. I'm going to pull the cover over the rest of the rack. Next job then is to attach the zip and to zip the tent right around. And the last thing we're going to do is to secure the cover over the top with the two long straps from the front to the back. Remember that you're effectively securing these straps the same way as you would secure a life preserver. Time to see how it actually performs on the road. So, things I'm interested in again: handling, impact on speed, noise, and I must be honest and say I'm a little bit nervous. It's a fair old bit of weight on the roof of this little car, and well, let's see how it goes. I have to say it's quite a windy day today anyway. 50 miles an hour. $60 miles an hour. I am very pleasantly surprised at the lack of wind noise. I'm not even aware that it's there. I am aware of a handling difference. And again, I'm conscious it's quite windy anyway just now, and this vehicle has a lot of side area anyway and can catch the wind. But it's not huge. I'm coming up to a series of bends, we'll see how it performs there. Entering the bends 55 miles an hour. Tiny little element of additional roll, but you don't notice it on this car because this car tends to roll a little bit anyway. I really thought that the impact of the roof tent on the vehicle would be considerably more than it is, and I was worried actually that I wouldn't want to leave it on the vehicle because it would be just too hard work to drive with it. I think we could live with that very happily. I had all kinds of ideas about making a fairing for the front of it to make the whole thing a little bit more aerodynamic. Not required. And of course, the advantage in the Front Runner product is it is probably the lightest roof tent on the market. And I'm travelling just now fully loaded, insofar as I could reduce the weight on the roof further. I could take the ladder off, I could take some of the slats off the roof rack that aren't required, I could take the metal poles from the roof rack out of the tent itself. So what I'm travelling with just now is a worst case scenario. Well, that went far better than I expected. It handles extremely well. And I shouldn't have been surprised really, because I've been thinking about it on the way back in. Although the package looks bulky, it's actually very low profile for a roof tent. It's only around 320, 330 millimeters in terms of the total depth. And the weight is just a little over 40 kilograms. And as a result of that, it's actually a very, very positive driving experience. So I've really enjoyed fitting the Front Runner rack and tent, and I'm looking forward to having lots of adventures with it. Tune in to the next video and we'll see how it actually works in operation. The process has been an easy one. The instructions are very clear, the products are extremely well made, they go together beautifully, and as we've seen in the handling tests, I am so pleasantly surprised at how little the impact on the performance of the vehicle. And that's great because it means I won't be taking the tent on and off. It's there and I can use it anytime I want to. You know, one of the other little things that as I've been doing this project, in all of the little bags that you open up, in all of the different pieces of the kit that you put together, there's a little packing slip, and Front Runner make you feel part of the process by personalising it. And I've got the packs here and they're all signed by the people who put the bits together, so I will probably never ever meet these people, but I feel I have a connection with them. So can I say, on behalf of myself and Higher Ground Lifestyle, thank you Front Runner, and thank you Cozio, Josephine, Magdalene, Masoka, Nontlala and Tereko. Folks, we will possibly never ever meet, but thanks for putting together a great product, and best wishes from Scotland to you guys, wherever you are.
In my next video we'll be showing the Front Runner roof tent in operation. And if you've enjoyed this video, you might want to consider looking at some of my other videos and maybe even liking and following my channel. Guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I will be with you again very soon. Oh, and stay safe out there.